Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Shining. Oh no.
Oh,
Oh no.
no.
The batter. That's sad. It died. That's because we take too long between videos. That flashlight's been sitting up there for a month.
Batteries that normally last 10 years it just died. That's how long it's been. It's been 10 years.
Yeah, I'm a grandfather now.
Okay, welcome to the Read-a-thon.
The Stephen King Read-a-thon, baby.
Stephen King Read-a-thon.
If you don't know what's going on by now, why are you even here? Go back, click on the thing, click on the card up in the corner, and get caught up, because we're reading through Stephen King's published fiction in publication order, and we're having a blast. It's taking us forever, but we're really enjoying it. This is
Good stuff. Our third
this is
book.
the third. I was gonna say this is the third video we've done on The Shining.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
also the third book in our adventure together, right?
Right.
So we read Carrie, and then Salem's Lot, and now The Shining. And now we're about halfway through The Shining, I think, right?
Yep.
Yeah, about halfway.
Whoop.
We just finished section 3, part 3, which was called The Wasp's Nest. I loved it.
Yeah. All right.
Right before I started the recording, you were saying something, Jordan, about this section. Care to repeat your thoughts?
You said remember those thoughts, and I forgot it. I forgot my thoughts.
You said it was like a transition. Like this whole section was like a transition
from details in the story, like building up, to now it's the mushy gushy.
The mushy gushy, the good stuff.
The mushy gushy of horror. So it's not really, mushy gushy, but
like a mushy gushy body, like a
oh yeah, that's true. We did
body.
see that in here. I mean, it was
Yeah.
not pleasant.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about that. I think that's going to be the bulk of my comments today, but let's hold off on that for just a second. But yeah, I think you're totally right. This is like a transition between introducing the whole story, right? We've gotten to know the Torrances pretty well by now. We understand a little bit about what The Shining is, about Jack Torrance's past problems and stuff like that. And now it's like bad stuff is starting to happen. Is that a fly?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm trying to hold still, and okay, it adds to the horror.
Yes. So yeah, like things are getting real. Things are getting serious. And so I guess we'll just cut to our little video clip reactions, right? We did little summary videos of each chapter, short little quick summaries. I want to say I am sorry. Before when we recorded our last video, we were like, okay, for this next section, I'll do the even chapters and you do the odd chapters, and like we didn't even look at the chapters. And then as I was going through, I felt like probably 2/3 of my chapters were like really short, and all of yours were super long.
I did notice like chapter 24 or something is like a page or something.
Like 2 pages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The next like 10 pages.
Yeah, I would have like a 5-page chapter, and then you'd have like a 15-page chapter, and then I had a 2-page chapter, and then you had like a 12-page chapter. And I was like, I'm loving this. I don't have to do a reaction video on these long chapters. So
yeah, that's all good.
So roll the clip.
Dun 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 dun.
Jack is up on the roof repairing the shingles, and he gets stung by a wasp, and then he sort of stops and starts contemplating and thinking about his life and where he's at, and we see that he's doing really well. He's actually his play that he's writing is coming along really well, and he's just feeling good. He's feeling happy. He's getting better. He's reflecting on his past alcoholism, and actually we get to see the story of what happened with him and that student at the school where he used to work, George Hatfield, I think his name was, and he injured the kid because the kid was like slashed his tires and stuff. So we get to see what actually happened. So that's kind of cool.
So this part, Jack, Wendy, and Danny but they're all in the hotel. Everything's going good. This kind of just talks about how um, life is just good right now. They're just coming back from town. They got some stuff. Jack had been working up on the roof, fixing shingles and stuff. Um, in the past couple chapters, or the past first half of the book, we learned that Jack and Wendy have had some troubles in the past, but it seems to be going pretty good right now. They both seem pretty happy. Um, and one of the things that Jack found when he was fixing the roof was this big wasp nest, and he emptied it out and everything. Put like a bug killing bomb in there, and then he gave it to Danny as a present. It's this big, huge wasp nest, and just looks kind of cool. So, yeah.
So Jack kills this wasp nest, and he gives the wasp nest to his son Danny as like just a cool thing that a boy would like to have in his room. And he assures Wendy, all the wasps are dead. I shook them out of there. Like, there's no danger. Danny's having these nightmares, and then so at the end of the chapter, he's having another nightmare, and the parents are worried about him. And then he wakes up, and there's like wasps on his wrist, and they sting him like 11 times. He has a bad reaction to it. The parents rush in there, try to save him. Jack puts a bowl over the wasp nest, and he's thinking like, holy cow, how did any of these things survive? Maybe one or two of them survived. By the time they take care of Danny, he comes back to check on the nest. The inside of the bowl is crawling with hundreds of wasps. And he's just like, he goes to bed like completely tripping out, wondering how the heck could all these wasps have like come back to life. Because he was handling the nest, he was shaking it, he was totally certain that all the wasps were dead, and they came back.
This chapter's about Danny. He gets taken to the doctor's office on just a regular checkup. Just yearly, they just want to make sure everything's going good. Everything turns out to be good. He's a healthy young boy. The doctor asks him if there's anything else that he wants to tell him, and Danny ends up telling the doctor about Tony, his imaginary friend, or it could be real. We're not sure exactly what's going on. So he tells him about Tony, that he tells him to do stuff sometimes, that he like shows up. It's kind of like a dark feeling when he shows up. So the doctor asks him if he can make Tony come right there in the room. So he tries to, and he ends up kind of like blacking out, and it scares Danny. And so Danny goes back in the waiting room after that whole thing, and the doctor has the parents come in and says that nothing's wrong with him. He doesn't really believe him that it's a actual like demon or what have you. He thinks that maybe Danny's just imaginative. It could be a coping mechanism, because they left his home and are at this new place, or he says he knows about like his parents' divorce, that Tony told him about that, so he thinks maybe it could be something like that, but the doctor doesn't think it's a big problem, and it'll eventually go away.
So Jack is working down in the cellar, and he finds a scrapbook, like this old book, and it's all full of all this stuff, this history, newspaper clippings and articles and things about the Overlook Hotel, but it's all focused on these like weird dark elements of its history. And it talks about this guy who built the hotel and owned it, and then we learned earlier in the book that the hotel has gone through several different owners, but according to the information in this scrapbook, most of those owners had ties to the original owner. And it was like, at one point it was owned by like a group of people connected to the mafia, and there were like murders that had happened there and all sorts of weird crimes and stuff. So it's just got this dark, bad history. And for whatever reason, there's an almost sort of, I don't know, I felt like it was almost like a supernatural element happening to Jack as he was reading about it, because he was talking about like how badly he wanted to drink as he was reading it, and he was like really absorbed into reading about this this dark, sordid past of the hotel. And it was almost like he was falling down the rabbit hole of this sort of darkness and weirdness. And it was kind of cool to see some history about it. Oh, and he's also hiding it from Wendy. He's like ashamed, and so when she comes down the stairs, he like hides it from her. So it's something weird's going on here.
So we remember in previous chapters that Dick Halloran, the cook, had told Danny not to go into room 217. He said, just stay out of there. He'd been in there with The Shining. You see stuff. No good, no good. So Danny, being Danny, super curious, wants to know why he can't go in 217. So he ends up sneaking the key up, goes to there. When he's in front of the door, he remembers a story that his dad told him about a guy named Bluebeard that had a room that was locked, and he told his wife never to go in there. And she got curious. She opened the door, and it had all of his previous wives with their heads chopped off, and then he killed her, saying that she was the same as all the others, disobeyed him and stuff. Anyways, a gruesome story that just came to his mind as he was going to 217. So he knows that there's probably something gruesome and terrible, but also curious, just like when you're watching a scary movie. Like, you want to know what's going on, but behind the safety of maybe your hands or something. Anyways, he doesn't end up going into the room, and he's just walking down the hall and starts to get inside his mind. He sees this hose reel, like a fire extinguisher hose, and starts to get inside his mind of what if that came alive, kind of weird stuff, if it was like a snake and try to bite him, and just kind of freaks himself out. So anyway.
So Jack is in the library. He's doing some research, trying to fill in the gaps that were left in the scrapbook, because the scrapbook covered certain years when the Overlook Hotel was owned by people, and then there were certain gaps when it was blank. There was no information. So he's at the local library trying to, at the Sidewinder, I think it was, the town closest to the hotel. He's finding some information, but not all that much. And then for whatever reason, and he can't even really explain it himself, he goes to a payphone and he calls Mr. Ullman, the manager guy of the hotel that we met in Chapter 1, who he really doesn't like at all. He calls him, and he starts making some accusations that the guy had hidden part of the history from him. He tells him about the scrapbook, and he tells him, why didn't you tell me that there was murder and all this crazy crime going on in this hotel? And the guy's like, it's none of your business. You're just the caretaker for the winter. Why are you so concerned about this? And Jack really antagonizes him, and it's a weird moment where you're like, what are you doing? And then once he hangs up, he thinks that to himself, what am I doing? I'm trying to... Because Ullman starts talking about, well, I'm just going to fire you. If you're going to act like this, I'm going to find somebody else to replace you. And Jack is like, oh my gosh, am I just self-destructing? Am I shooting myself in the foot? Am I ruining my chances of success? And I thought it was kind of powerful. This is something a little bit, not personal. I'm not going to share a personal experience or anything, but I see that in myself sometimes. And I hope it's not just me. I think, everybody can be a little bit self-destructive at times, right? You do some dumb thing that really you shouldn't do, but you're just upset at the time, and it's a bad thing to do, but you do it, and it's self-destructive. And Jack is really spiraling into that right now. It feels like it's about to begin a steep decline, I would say. It seems like he's about to go off the edge, and also he keeps thinking in his mind how badly he wants a drink.
This chapter. Al Shockley, one of Jack's buddies from a long time ago, the one that got him the job at this hotel, gives him a call because in the previous chapter he called Ullman and went on a rant. So Al Shockley calls Jack and is wondering what happened, what's going on, why did you make that call? And gets into it, finally apologizes and just says I don't know what I was doing anyways. So Al gives him some conditions that he won't fire him, saying he can't write this book that he was going to publish about the hotel, and he can't make any more calls to Ullman. So he agrees, but he's not very happy about it because that was his idea to write a book. But anyways, so he gets done with that phone call. Then later on that night, Danny is just talking to his mom. Neither of them heard the conversation, but somehow Danny knows that Al was not very happy with his dad. He has that sixth sense, the Shining. So we find that out, and then later on, he's just in his bed thinking about different things, and he remembers this one guy that went to a mental institution because he had lost his marbles. All these, like, he'd done all these weird things. So he wonders maybe if his dad is going to do that, because he's started acting kind of weird, like he can sense things aren't good for his dad here at the hotel. So Danny's just worried about him. He's worried what's going to happen to him, if maybe he's going to be put in an institution. He doesn't understand all of that, but he's worried about him.
So Wendy is driving Danny down to Sidewinder, and she hasn't explicitly said this, but she's basically come to grips with the fact that he can kind of read minds. So she's asking him questions about Jack and about how he feels and if they should stay at the Overlook or not and stuff like that. And Danny actually tells her that they should stay at the Overlook, that it's better than the alternative of going and staying with his grandma, Wendy's mom. And so, yeah, that's basically it. And also she asks Danny if Jack has been drinking again, and Danny tells her no, but he doesn't tell her what he's thinking, which is not yet.
This chapter is pretty much just about Jack. He goes down to kind of trim the hedges. There's like a playground area down there as well. He goes down to trim the hedges. He starts to trim the hedges, makes them look nice. Then he discovers this playground area, and then just kind of remembers what it was like when he was a kid. And then he kind of starts playing on the playground in a weird way, just getting on the slide, and he's too big for the slide, and then just looking at different things, just kind of going down memory lane. Anyways, when he's doing some of that stuff, he hears a noise, and then he thinks that someone has hurt him, so he's kind of embarrassed. And he starts looking around, goes back to the hedges that he'd pruned and notices that something's different. And then all of a sudden he realizes that some of them are in different positions and they're changing, and he starts freaking out, but just thinks that maybe it's a hallucination, but he's not sure. And then he looks back and they're all back in their original form again. So we're not sure exactly if he was hallucinating or if there's something ominous going on here.
Extremely short chapter. It's literally only like 2 pages, and it just starts snowing. And so throughout the last couple of chapters, there's been warnings from the news that like the snow was going to be happening. The family's been waiting for this snow, right? They've been talking about the whole book that they're going to be snowed in. So it's finally starting, and it's sort of it's like sealing the deal. Like the family is like, okay, this is it. We are officially going to be stuck here for the next few months.
Chapter 25, Inside 217. So a couple chapters back, it was outside. Now he's about to go in. So we're going to see what happens. Yikes. Well, we do see what happens, and it is not lovely, to say the least. Danny finally goes in there, and Tony's with him, and there's all sorts of voices going on, kind of chaos. Anyways, he gets in there. He's creepily kind of walking in hesitantly, not knowing what he's going to find, but has that curiosity about him as well. He goes into the bathroom, and he sees the shower there. He pulls open the shower curtain, and there's a lady in there that's been dead for a long time. But she's not just dead. Her eyes are open, looking at him, and she's smiling at him. Yeah, creepy. And so he runs out of there, freaked out, and she starts chasing after him. He can't open the door that he's trying to get out, and then he remembers what Halloran had told him, that like these things are probably not real, like they can't hurt you or anything. So just like close your eyes, then just say that they're not real, and they'll go away. So he tries to do that while he's trying to open the door, just thinking maybe they're all in his mind. He finally opens the door, and he turns around, and she's still there, and she grabs him. That's the end. So, yeah.
That was great, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Your acting is really improved.
Thanks, man.
I especially like the part where you acted out the dead body and you put on all
Yeah.
that makeup,
Yeah.
now you're gonna have to do it. I've said it in the video. You're gonna have to do it.
You can't set me up like that, man.
Too late, just did.
Okay. Well, I like the. I can't even say it because you already. That's what happens when you're prepared. See,
That's right.
You're
You can't get
prepared?
me.
I can't get you.
I'm untouchable.
Well done. All right. So what was maybe like your scariest part? I mean, I guess that goes without saying, right? The scariest
Yeah,
part.
obviously the ending. I would like the last chapter. What was it? Chapter 25.
Yeah.
In room. Sorry, it's called Inside 217. Right.
Right.
This room 217 that Halloran told Danny specifically, don't go in there. You know, there's nothing good in there. It's something, you know, just don't go in there. It's dangerous or whatever. Danny cannot control his curiosity. He goes in there. Something real scurry happened. But actually, since that's probably, you know, what everyone's going to focus on, I actually want to back it up. In the chapter, I think it was called Danny. It was chapter 20. Which one was it? No. 18. Sorry, 16. Whatever. Chapter 16, Danny, is the one where he gets attacked by the wasps, I think, right?
Yeah.
And
First
that
chapter.
to me, chapter 16, yeah, Danny.
Yeah.
And I mentioned it in my little recap video that like I was surprised how scary that was. As a kid, I grew up out in the country. We had wasps all over our property. It was never like a big deal. I've been stung by wasps a few times. But like reading about this like wasp attack in the middle of the night, especially because Jack had killed the nest, and like it was pretty creepy. So
Yeah.
I think, you know, besides the obvious big shocked, scary horror moment at the end, I think the actual wasp attack was probably the scariest part for me.
Yeah. Funny enough, actually, when I was reading this section,
You got stung by a wasp.
I did.
Did you really?
Yeah.
I was just
I did.
joking.
No, I got stung by a wasp. It was, let's see, 2 weeks ago. I was at my sister-in-law's house, and Doss, my 1.5-year-old, he was playing on the play equipment. He was playing for probably like 10 minutes. Nothing. I didn't see any wasps or anything. Then all of a sudden, I like see something coming out my face, like a fly or something. So I go to brush it away, and I miss it, and it's just a wasp. It stings me right in my cheek.
It stung you on the face? That's the
Yeah, it
worst.
stung me on my face. Yeah, dude. And then I look up, and there's a huge wasp nest in the roof of the playhouse.
Oh man.
They've just been like sitting there the whole time while he was just playing. I'm like freaking out. So I like grab him, and like he didn't know, but it was crazy, dude. They weren't bothering him or anything until like just all of a sudden they decided
wow.
to. So
That's
more frightening.
Yeah. You experienced it firsthand. But at least it stung you and not your baby boy.
Yeah. I was just like befuddled, I guess, because he'd been playing there for 10 minutes and nothing had happened. And it was like literally only a foot above his head.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild. That reminds me, I'm actually glad you brought that up because it makes me think of our old pest control days. For anybody watching here that doesn't know, Jordan and I, right after high school, we moved away from home. You know, we struck out on our own to find our fortune and our to be men. And we sold pest control door to door. And I remember learning that like most wasps, the common paper wasp, I think they're called paper wasps, they're not really territorial or aggressive. Like you can knock down their nests, and as long as you're not like right there, like they'll just kind of fly away. But I don't know. So, but like hornets and other types of wasps definitely can be more aggressive. So it was interesting as I was reading this, I was like, I don't think that's really how wasps behave. Like as I was reading it, but maybe it's a different type of wasp. I don't know.
And they could have been possessed too.
They could have. Well, oh yeah, it's everything you're saying is just like leading me to my next thought. I am so tripped out by this thing where he puts the bowl over the wasp nest, and then all these wasps come out, and it's like they're alive, and I'm like, what the heck happened? So then, me being a experienced patient reader, I'm like, okay, we'll find out. And then like it's never even brought up again in the whole rest of this section. I'm really hoping to get an answer. I'm like, what the heck happened with those wasps? Because that was trippy. That was another thing that made that chapter like scary. So he killed this nest. He like confirmed, shook all the wasps out of it. He was sure that there was no danger. And all of a sudden there's like, I don't know, dozens or hundreds of wasps coming out of there. thankfully he caught them all in this bowl and threw them outside and they froze to death. But like, where did they come from? Is it some sort of magic? Were they like resurrected? Are they like mummy? They're like zombie wasps, or they're like new wasps that were just like generated out of nothing by the evil of this hotel. I don't know what the heck is going on. It's trippy. It seems like a piece that doesn't quite fit in the puzzle so far.
Yeah.
Like they're real wasps. They're not like ghosts, you know? It's not like a weird vision that Danny just saw. Like they're real wasps that stung him. I don't know. So that was kind of crazy.
Yeah, insects are creepy for some reason. Just like in other scary movies, like you'll see moths like gather around or flies.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I don't know. Just maybe it's just an element of like a terror element, you know?
I think we as humans were just creeped out by all those legs, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like spiders. Spiders are, yeah. Anything with more than 2 legs, it's just unnatural.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, we've already talked about the wasps for a while. What about you? What was like your creepiest, scariest moment, other than the big shock at the end?
Big shot. Let's see. Creepiest part. I don't know, maybe the scariest part, but when
or most interesting or most gruesome, or the part that aroused you the most. I don't know.
Not on this podcast.
That's for our other podcast.
The Stephen King Read-a-thon After Dark.
After Dark. Yes.
No,
sorry, I forgot where I was.
When Jack is in the animal garden. No, the animal garden.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, that was trippy.
That was kind of creepy, but more on the sense of like when he's, I guess it's not creepy, just like when he was pretending to be like a kid and like play around in the garden, like play around in the playground, and he like grabs on the chain link fence and he's like, "Oh, let me out, let me out."
Yeah.
It's just it was really relatable because I feel like everybody does stuff that they're really embarrassed about, that they know nobody's watching, like talking to yourself in the car or singing in the shower or whatever it is. Like people do stuff without people knowing,
or just like making weird faces in the mirror or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, not that I do that, but
no, but everybody does it. But if
Yeah.
someone were to come in and see you at that point, like when you're really vulnerable, that to me is one of my biggest fears, of just like being ultimately embarrassed, you know?
Have you ever been caught just doing something super weird?
I can't think of anything specific, but
I know I have. I can't think of anything specific, but I know I have. Like just like dancing around or just goofing around or saying weird things, and then all of a sudden I turn around and like my wife's there. I'm like, oh crap. Like, oh.
Yeah. No, dude. But I just thought that was really interesting how he wrote that. It was really relatable, you know, like everybody does that sort of thing.
But it's not something that you ever really think about. Like if I were writing a story, I would never include that. You know, you wouldn't think. I don't know. That's one thing I've noticed about him, is like he really gets into the very personal aspect of his characters. Like you really feel like they're super real because they do, like, this is a perfect example. They do these goofy things that like no one ever talks about, but everybody does it. So
Exactly.
I think it's a great example. And it was super creepy in the garden when he's trimming the hedges. That was actually a pretty creepy part too. Yeah. It
was kind of like hallucinating, or maybe not hallucinating. We don't know. And they're changing positions.
The hedges started moving, started circling, almost like they were hunting him.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. Kind of creepy.
I really liked the part where he was in the basement and he finds the scrapbook and he's going through, because it felt like we were finally getting some answers of like, what is the history of the Overlook? So it's, you know, it's passed through a lot of different hands, and there's been, you know, violence and crime and all sorts of crazy stuff that's happened in the hotel. But I also really like that part because of what's happening to Jack. As he's reading through the scrapbook, it's almost like becoming his addiction. Like Wendy starts coming down the stairs and he like hides it real quick, and he's like ashamed of it. He doesn't want to talk to her about it for some reason. And he keeps wiping his mouth. That's like, and we're told that that's like something he used to do when he was drinking a lot. It was like a nervous tick of his. So he's acting, and actually it specifically states it later on that Wendy says like all of his drinking behaviors are back without the drinking. So like he's acting just like he used to act when he was totally
all the
absorbed
symptoms are
in his
there.
alcoholism. And so it's like, I really like that chapter for those two reasons. It was like this cool sort of duology thing that you get to learn about the past, but you also get to see what's happening to Jack. And in this whole section, we've seen Jack really devolve. At first, at the beginning of the book, it looked like, oh, he's becoming this great family man and things are looking up and he's sober and he's happy. But like, he's just starting to decline again.
Yeah. So his progression or digression, yeah, I guess you could say. I guess he'd already been doing those sorts of things, so it'd be regression, right?
I guess. I don't know. Is that the word?
Regress? Yeah.
Regress. Unprogress.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. English,
Yeah.
You get it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, is there anything else we want to talk about before this last chapter of the section?
Yeah, I
else
just had a couple more things. To tie to the last two books, I've noticed that, and I've said this on the other books, that he focuses on the children's viewpoint a lot.
Yeah.
As adults reading these books, we forget those sorts of things. But I noticed another time in here, just like when they're talking about the guy that went into the insane asylum, like he was losing his marbles, and the guys in white coats come. It's just interesting because kids, as adults, were like, "Oh yeah, he's crazy, so he has to go to insane asylum." Obviously, that's just what happens, But as kids, you just,
everyday occurrence. It's just like a normal Tuesday, whatever.
Right. I guess what I'm just saying is you don't think about it much. If somebody's crazy, then that's just naturally what happens. But as kids, you have this vast imagination that you're still trying to construct what you know about life, and you're wondering well, he's just acting this certain way. Why does he have to be taken to this place? Why? It's really confusing, and you can see that Danny's having troubles with understanding all of what's going on.
And then what was interesting about that part is just the vocabulary used. As an adult, the expression "losing your marbles," and you just sort of take that for granted. But Danny's never heard that before.
Yeah.
And so he's like, well, did he find his marbles, or is he gonna go get them, or what's
right?
And it's just and it sort of shocks you into remembering that oh, he's a little kid, because so much of the time I think Stephen King, I don't know if it's a pro or a con, to be honest. His child characters, they're way more mature than we normally think of kids as being. Because Danny, in our last video, we were talking about how he was 10 or 11 or 12. I had to look it up because I couldn't remember. He's 5. Danny's only 5 years old. And when you're in his viewpoint, you think it's a 12-year-old kid, you know? So it's, I don't know if that's a pro or a con, but then again, when you're a little kid, you don't feel like a little kid, you think you're just as smart as everybody else. So maybe that's intentional. I don't know. Anyway, but I like that the whole thing about losing your marbles, it reminds you that oh, this is a little, very inexperienced kid, and he's trying to make sense of the world. And like you said, he's trying to understand, why would you have to go away just because you're acting strange?
Yeah. And then it relates later on in the chapter, maybe not in that chapter, but the next chapter just says he starts doing something weird, and he's like, oh, well, is this something that would make me have to go to the insane asylum? Or is what his dad is doing, is that something that's going to have to make him go to the insane asylum? Then he's never going to come back again? That's stuff that as a kid you'd freak out about, because you don't
want to.
Yeah. And so in Salem's Lot and in Carrie, it focused on those sorts of things as well, of just specifically Salem's Lot, where he was talking about his parents getting divorced. No, that was this one.
Yeah. Where Jack and Wendy have been thinking about divorce. Both of them have been thinking about it, but they've never spoken about it out loud. No, Danny has heard their thoughts.
Salem's Lot was when he was just literally afraid of something coming out from under his bed, just because. Yeah,
Mark Petrie we had a whole discussion about how that existential dread and dealing with monsters and all this stuff, that kids are just used to that. So then when they confront true terror, it's not even a big deal to them, because it's well, every night I have to deal with this this monster under my bed, this is no different than that, in their mind.
Yeah. So I just like that pattern of Stephen King is just like getting into the minds of children and reminding adult readers that like these are real fears that that we used to have because we were kids.
And that reminds me of another thing. When Danny's walking through the hall and there's the fire hose thing, and he starts thinking that like it's a snake or something, and then it sort of moves, and he's just terrified. I remember when I was a kid, my parents, we had a 2-story house, and downstairs we just called it the storage room. We had like a pantry, but it was like it was sort of like a long room with just a bare concrete floor, and my dad had built some like wooden shelves in there, and we kept cans and food and like jars and things like that. Right. And I remember it was like scary to go into, and the light switch to that room was on the outside, and I had this like little mental trick thing that like I convinced myself like, well, as long as you turn on the light before you open the door, turning on the light lets the monsters know that like someone's coming in, so they'll all run and hide. So it's like, you don't ever open the door without turning the light on first, and it was one of those things. And it's like, in my mind as a small kid, as long as I flipped that light before I opened the door, I was totally fine. But I would never like spend more time in there than I needed to, Right. I'd be like, I'd flip it on, grab the thing and like book it out of there. Because it was scary. I thought there were like monsters in there or whatever. But it reminded me a lot of the fire hose thing, where he was just like scared to even move because he thought the thing was gonna get him or whatever, and he started, and then like one crazy thought led to another crazy thought, and before he knew it, he was being completely irrational, or was he? I don't know.
Or he was just on drugs. One on the two.
Danny, this 5-year-old Danny Torrance is just he's snorting something. So I thought it was interesting how it showed, again, I feel like Stephen King does a really good job of showing the progression or the regression, depending on the situation, of how things occur and happen. Like Jack is slowly getting worse and worse. We're slowly learning more about this hotel. And Danny, he doesn't just go into the hotel room that Halloran told him to stay out of. We have a whole chapter called Outside 217 or Outside Room 217 or something like that, where he like wants to go in, but he like knows he shouldn't. And he's just fighting his curiosity, and he finally like is able to shut it off and pull the key out of the door and walk away. But then like a couple chapters later, he's there again. He puts the key in, and this time he actually goes inside. So I thought that was kind of cool. Like he included a whole chapter of him battling this urge, but then he does lose to his curiosity, and he goes into the room, and then it's just like a normal room.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
Just sort of that slow burn of like, oh, there it is. No, I'm going to take it back. There it is again. Kind of.
Yeah,
definitely. Kind of toying with the idea of going in there.
He's just teasing us. But yeah, and then when he went in, I guess I was sort of thinking like, oh, he's going to, I don't know. This whole time I've been thinking, especially after Jack was reading in the scrapbook, I was thinking it's going to be kind of lame if like all he sees is just like for lack of a better word, the ghosts of these past crimes, like what he saw in the presidential suite with like the brain matter on the wall.
Yeah.
Like it's going to be lame if that's all he sees, like inanimate evidence, of like just what like happened in the past.
Wandering around, or like the scene of what's going on.
Like the scene. Yeah. Like the brain matter thing. Like that was cool. But I was sitting there thinking like, it's going to be lame if like that's all he sees in room 217, like evidence of some horrible crime. And I was not disappointed. Because what does he find, Jordan?
Dead lady. That's really creepy.
Yeah. A dead lady in the bathtub. And she's like, her eyes are open, right? It said her eyes were bulging as big as like marbles. Yeah.
And they were whited out, so there's no pupils or anything.
Yeah. And I think she was smiling. She had like this big grin. She's like in the bathtub.
That's what I want to talk about, is like, why is that so creepy? Why, like, smiling is a happy thing, But when everyone in a scary situation, when anyone's smiling, it becomes 10 times creepier. Like, that was so freaky. If she was just like a dead lady, like, and her mouth was normal, and it'd be like, oh yeah, well, that's creepy, don't do that. But when she's smiling.
Don't do that.
I
Actually, I
don't
think you're really onto something. I didn't even think of that. Yeah, that's totally true. If he just saw a dead body and it had like its eyes closed and it was just like slumped,
Or
it would
even
be like,
even
it'd
if
be like
his eyes
creepy.
were open, yeah, it'd be creepy, but it'd just be a dead person. But when it's
Right.
smiling at you, there's something.
I think I know what it is.
What
This
is
is what my theory.
All
It
right.
becomes predatory.
Oh, okay.
Like you said, smiling is a happy thing, you know, like we smile. But if a predator is smiling, I don't know. To me, it like makes me think of like an animal about to eat another animal, and it's like smiling because it's about to get dinner or whatever. Like if you're gonna attack someone and you're smiling because you know that like you're gonna mess it up, you're gonna destroy this thing or whatever, and you're happy about it. To the thing that's like horribly terrifying, right? So like to Danny, this lady, instead of just being a dead body, she's almost like a predator, right? Because she's like staring at him and smiling, and it's like, oh crap, like she's planning on doing something to
She
me.
has the upper hand, sort of thing.
She has the, yes, very good, yeah, has the upper
Okay.
hand. And then, as if that's not creepy enough, she starts to get out of the bathtub. She starts moving and coming at him. Like that was when that happened. I was like, ah! Like, oh my gosh, she's not just dead. Like she's. I was like, what? Not so. So I was satisfied with that. Like I said, I was happy it wasn't just some image left over. You know, it was actually something that like it's coming for him.
Yeah.
And of course, Halloran told him, oh, you know, close your eyes and then open them again, and the stuff's gonna be gone. Nothing can hurt you. You know, they're just ghosts. They're just images. But what happens? He runs. He makes it to the door. I can't remember. He's like fumbling. The door gets locked or something.
He tries to open the door and he keeps saying like, "It's not real. It's not real. It's not real." And then he feels her hands on his neck.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say. So like, he can't get the door up, and he starts pounding on it. But then he stops and he remembers. Okay, he just closes his eyes. He turns around, opens his eyes, and the lady's there, and she grabs him and drags him back into the room. And then the freaking chapter ends. Like, oh my gosh, what just happened to Danny?
Oh yeah.
He's a goner.
Yeah.
Crazy.
A lot, dude. But I do not like smiling dead people. We decided that. I don't like that.
The one thing I noticed, has Stephen King really left us on a big cliffhanger like that before? I don't think he really has.
In this book?
Well, in any of his, I think there were some small cliffhangers in Salem's Lot.
Yeah.
But nothing like this, right?
No, this was big.
Like this lady grabbed Danny and dragged him into the room, has physical
so
power over him.
Yeah,
and then the chapter ends.
Is this lady even real? Like, is she even dead? Like, what the heck is she smiling about? And what happens to Danny?
You just can't get over the smile. Well, and then it's not even just the chapter ending, it's the whole section of the book ends. Right? We're on to part 4 now. And so after I read that, I was like, well, now I got to wait to make a video with Jordan before I read the next chapter. So it's like, I'm just itching to figure out what the heck just happened. It was scurry and exciting. And it was scary. It was pretty good. Really good.
Yeah, it was good. So excited to see what happens in the next section.
Anything else?
No, I guess one small thing right before that happened, he starts hearing like a lot of voices, and it's like I listened to it, the audio version, and I read it. So reading it makes a little bit more sense, but like it just like he thinks about a white rabbit, and then he just hears a lot of different like voices while he's thinking of other things.
Yeah, there were, I don't remember details, but he keeps thinking about Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. It says the White Rabbit had been on its way to a croquet party, to the Red Queen's croquet party, storks for mallets, hedgehogs for balls, stuff like that. It was that's from. Have you ever read Alice in Wonderland?
I haven't.
It's pretty lame.
I was referencing that, but it just like keeps popping in random things like that.
Yeah.
And then a little later down it says, "Pray tell me, why is a raven like a writing desk?"
Oh, yeah.
Just random things.
Yeah, that's from Alice in Wonderland too.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. And in the book, it's all in italics and parentheses and stuff like that. So, and earlier in the book, that's whenever you see that, it's been thoughts. Whenever he's hearing people think, it's always in parentheses and italics and stuff. And so I don't know if it's his thoughts or if he's hearing other people's thoughts. I don't know.
Yeah.
Side note, Alice in Wonderland, not a very enjoyable book. I didn't like it very much at all.
No.
The movie's great. Have you seen the old cartoon movie?
Like the Disney one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you see that movie and you're like, oh, this is so funny and wacky. And then you think like, oh, the book's going to be fun. But like a 200-page book that makes no sense is not fun. Like the book, it's just like the movie. Like nothing makes sense. And you're like, why am I reading this? It's
That's interesting.
It's not like, sometimes you'll read a book and like things don't make sense, but it all comes together at the end and you're like, oh, wow, that's awesome how it all tied together. This one's it's just a bunch of crap and like nothing happens. And like,
Doesn't make sense, huh?
it's just, well, it's called, what is it called? It's like its own little subgenre. It's like nonsensical phantasmagoria. I don't know what you call it, but it's just like, it's intentionally wacky and nonsensical. And then you're reading it and you're like, oh yeah, I knew that coming into this. Why am I reading? Like, this isn't even enjoyable. Anyway, that's I really don't enjoy that book at all. That's just my, whatever. Some people like it.
Gotcha. Well, it's on my reading list, so
yeah.
Good to know. Well,
don't expect a good, like, solid plot or character development or anything like that. It's just like random scene followed by random scene followed by random scene. You what?
I said I just won't have any expectations.
Yeah, no, just and then you won't be disappointed.
Yeah, that's true. Can't be disappointed when you don't have expectations.
Exactly. Anything else from this section?
No, I think that was it. That was all the main points.
And one thing we forgot to mention, second to last chapter in this section, the snow started coming down heavy. So they are officially snowbound. So part four is called Snowbound. So now they are like officially trapped in the hotel. And we'll see how that goes with all these creepy ghosts and things, and Jack starting to lose his mind, and dead smiling women attacking 5-year-old boys.
Yeah, that was kind of weird when you think about it.
Well, yeah, it's weird. it's a ghost lady in a bathtub, and then she grabs the kid. What do you think? I just can't wait to read what happens. Like, is she gonna eat him? Is she gonna kill him? Is she gonna drown him?
But she can't. I mean, we still have half the story to go. She can't.
Okay, maybe we should prediction time.
Okay.
I think because Danny's got The Shining, I think he's going to discover some new aspect of his powers, and he's going to be able to like overpower her and like mentally like push her off of him and run away or something like that.
He can just talk to her with his mind, find out that she really is just really hungry. She wanted a bowl of cereal. She couldn't get it. That's why she died in the tub.
Yeah. She starved to death in the bathtub. No, I don't know if he would speak to her. I kind of doubt it. I think he's gonna discover some sort of physical manifestation of his power. Like he's gonna be able to like stun her mentally or push her off of him, but just using his mind powers and then run away. That's my prediction. I don't know. We'll see.
I have no idea.
Or maybe Jack will come in and like the whole illusion will just end. Because he was banging on the door screaming for help, right?
Right.
And he was?
Yeah.
Right before she grabbed him. So
hopefully something happens. That's good.
yeah, because what would happen to Danny can see her because of The Shining, but what would happen if Jack or Wendy walked in? Would she be there? Would they see her? Would she be there and they just couldn't see her? Or would they see her? Or like would she just disappear completely?
Like she actually grabbed him.
Yeah.
So it seems like she's real. Shoot. No, don't do that.
This is seriously like what I imagined. Like
Yeah.
I can't smile. When I smile, my mouth doesn't go up, it just goes back. It was something like this. That's what he saw. But imagine, purple, swollen, rotting flesh.
Oh. Ah. Ah. No, thank you. Right?
We always try to keep these videos short, but they never are. So we hope you enjoyed our discussion of part 3 of The Shining, and stay tuned for part 4.
All right. Till
Yeah.
next time.
Toodles.
Bye.
Really, this was a good section.
It was. I liked it, dude.